I just want to introduce you to the exhibition. The reason for putting this together, this show which brings together these three brothers, William Heath is the most well known, but in the late 90s into the early years of the 20th century, all three brothers were recognised as formidable, highly accomplished and desirable. And in their day, they were all very successful indeed. Important because no artist works in a vacuum, of course, ever. But William, when he was setting out to be a serious artist, as well as eventually becoming a humorous artist, of course, he was working cheek by jowl with his two brothers, Thomas and Charles. And part of this show wants to really address that. How, as a brotherhood, as a trio, did they inform each other? Did they contribute to each other's artistic career and the success of their career? And the fact that they've operated a very close family, very close brothers, they were mutually supportive of each other, they collaborated with each other. There is a section here on their collaboration, and they were known very early on, we're talking about mid-1890s, as being a group, a trio to reckon with. They come from a long history of illustrators, engravers, so they kind of learned this, you know, in their cradle, as it were. Their father was the chief illustrator of the penny illustrated paper. Their uncle was an illustrator on the Illustrated London News, and so on. So the first section deals with that, and how family contributes to forming who they are. Not only in terms of their artistic excellence, but in terms of it being together, working together, playing together, and so on. Great deal of humour involved in the family, lots of singing and so on. And that's part of that, why I've chosen to address a club, a walking, drinking club, that Tom and William spent some of their formative years here in Pinner, and they went walking. Don't forget, Pinner then was a country village almost, to a pub here, a pub there. Their favourite pub to end up at lunchtime was the Crown in Stanmore, and then they'd slowly make their way back here, usually ending up the day at the Queen's Head or at the George and so on. And it became a club that then other artists joined, and they called this the Froth Finders Federation, and that's what's led to this edition of craft beer that we have here. But you're thinking beer, walking, going to pubs, fine art, what's the connection? But of course, the object of this exhibition is to say it's absolutely fundamental in developing both mutual kind of working together, but also developing certain strains of imagination as well. So that's what this part deals with. Then this part here deals with collaboration. They were invited to work on various publications. This was by this formidable publisher, Dent, who invited them to work together on a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales book, and he recognised that this was a trio, and that they were going to really possibly produce something as working together rather than as three separate entities. This area here focuses on various themes that they all shone at. We're commissioned to do works dealing with fairyland, child's world, story and legend, and round the back we've got a section there on the far away. Now, many artists were doing this. Fairyland, of course, 19th century fascination with fairyland is, obviously, was a deeply, deeply serious area of subject matter. One of the questions to ask is, to what extent are these pictures of fairies and pictures of children and everything actually pictures for adults rather than the children themselves? Some of these fairyland books, these gift books, these were expensive. so on. I decided, let's look at a certain area, or in this case, one area each, of which these brothers actually chose to branch off from their shared interest, shared work, and work at for themselves. And most of this comes out as a result of after the war, when they kind of go their separate ways. They're always there together, mutually supporting, and so on. And it focuses on Charles, who becomes very much an illustrator of society magazines. And you'll very much get a sense of that there. But not only society magazines which show, very elaborate pictures of young 20-something type kind of high society. And then over here is Tom, the eldest, and he became increasingly more interested in doing religious works, religious subject matter. He starts to take on interests in being religious. I mean, Tom was very much the fine artist of all three of them. Finally, we have this other area that William focused on, or was a major focus after the war, in the 20s, into the 30s, where he starts to get commissions from, in its day, a very exciting publishing organ called the National Magazine Company. And this was a spin-off of Randolph Hearst's huge publishing combine in the States. And it gave him a chance to start to do more serious work again. So that's the nature of the show. And the object of the show ultimately is, or a main aim, as I say, is by looking at this, by thinking about all of this and so on, then you go into our permanent gallery and you re-look at Will and think, okay, there was Tom, there was Charles, there was this family, there was all of this a collaborative work. To what extent do we see that as an important contributing factor to the sort of work that we we're more familiar with? So that's the gist of it. Okay, brilliant.